Can you hear me? Okay, ready to start? Okay. My name's Pete Foster. I'm a director of CoBuilder UK, and I'm also a member of the BIM for M2 and BIM for SME groups, which I will go through in a second. Today I'm going to talk to you about my story when I used to work in manufacturing and how we converted from PDFs to digital and the benefits and the returns that business got from doing that move. So hopefully that'll ring some bells with people in the room. Okay, so just a bit of an introduction, so you're wondering why I'm on stage. I was working 16 years in manufacturing in the offset construction and prefab industry. So that's a manufacturing-based building sector where the buildings are built on a shop floor and then transported to site and manufactured and put in place. So it's construction at its heart, but it's got a manufacturing process behind it. While I was there, I've been doing BIM for a good 3 or 4, or maybe even 5 years now, to be honest. And while I was there, I implemented BIM into the business, and built them towards what's called BIM Level 2, which you've heard quite a lot about today already. I've just finished my master's degree in BIM management, so I'm a bit of a BIM geek, to say the least. A BIM evangelist, if you want to be polite. The reason why I mentioned that, because there's a slide later on from my actual thesis. I'm going to go through and explain it to you. Okay, I mentioned BIM for M2 and BIM for SME. BIM for M2 is the manufacturers group in the UK. That's a part of the government strategy to help people get involved in BIM. I've been in that group since it started, a couple of years back now. And I actually ran the data templates group when it first started as well. I'm still a member of the group, but I don't run the actual group anymore. I'm also on the steering group for the BIM for M2 group as well. And BIM for SME is for small, medium enterprise businesses. And that's a very active and very rewarding group to be in the UK, to help manufacturers and small companies understand BIM, understand data, and start to improve themselves. And I recently joined CoBuilder 5 weeks ago, so I'm the new boy. So what I'm going to talk about is my personal experience, and a lot of the first couple of slides are going to be things you've heard about before, but we'll just go over them again. So when I first joined the business, it was very much a PDF-based information gathering business. So it was PDF sheets. They were hard to find. One of the problems that they had, and which BIM has solved for them, is they didn't have a common data environment. They didn't have any structure of saving things, no naming conventions. So even though the PDFs were there, no one could find them. No one knew what version was right, so people had version 2. They'd store it in a computer somewhere. 3 months later, use version 2 again, and version 3's out. And so it caused loads of risk, loads of errors, loads of cost in the business. There you go, error-prone. Very, very much an error-prone way of working in the business I used to work for. Like I say, because it wasn't saved in a structured format, people did use data that was quite old, to be fair. And because of that, it's a labor-intensive process. You have to find it. You have to make sure it's right. You have to check with the supply chain. You have to check with the people internally. And that all adds cost. And you're paying people to do this, which is crazy. I mean, get it right, and then you don't have to pay people to look for information. So this has been mentioned already, what type of data is needed. So I'm not going to stress on this too much, but obviously this has been talked about very well already earlier on this morning and this afternoon. So safety data sheets and things like declaration performance and all the other things that have been mentioned. So the reason why I want to mention that is because some data you need, you've got to have it. That's the way things are. But there's other things to consider too. And this is the goal I took with the company I worked for, really, and how to use that data internally for your own benefit. And it's great. Everything we're going to do here with BIM and working collaboratively, that's fantastic. We've got to do that. But you've got to have advantages for yourself. You've got to use that data internally and solve problems, reduce risk, and make more money. So it's things like customer requests. They're going to ask you for things that you probably haven't, if you're working in PDF, you haven't prepared for. So then you've got to generate that data somehow, or send them the PDFs, or they've got to go to your website and find it. Environmental data obviously has been mentioned quite a lot, and that's important. So you've got to be prepared for that. That strange one at the bottom right is supposed to be a heat calculation. It's a picture. But basically, people are going to ask you for calculations. And so, again, if it's in a PDF format, Someone's going to have to do some work with that. They're going to have to convert it, they type it into an Excel spreadsheet, is what they used to do at my old company. People get it wrong. And then the calculations would come out and you think it would great. You build it, and it's not so good. And finally, marketing. People don't think of the marketing aspect that much, I don't think sometimes. But if you can market yourself as someone who is ready with digital data and digital structure, and you can prove that you can deliver accurate information, you've got to step up of your competitors and all the other people you're dealing with. And that's a blank slide, which is not so good. There we go. Okay. This has been mentioned already. One thing you've got to consider if you're an international company, obviously, is the different languages that you need to deal with. And that's been mentioned with all the BSDD and things like that. So different countries and many languages, and how are you going to cope with that? Are you going to have various versions of your PDFs and stuff, which causes work? And this was actually mentioned earlier on, but it's still worth repeating. Software have their own language as well, and you've got to be able to map to that and communicate with the software languages. Now, I'm very much an open BIM person, to say the least, but you've got to be realistic. People are using Revit, people are using ArchiCAD, people are using Navisworks, and you've got to be able to adapt and conform to what the people want at that point in time. So, what can data do for you? That's a big question, and that's what that guy's saying. So, this is actually some stats from the business I used to work for. It's a few years old now. But they went through this process of changing their PDF information into data over a number of years, don't get me wrong. I was there for 16 years. So what they did first was unstructured data compared to the rest of the world. So they developed their own data solution, their own naming convention. And it worked fine because it was just by themselves. Then they realized that they've got to try and work with other people, so they moved towards the structured data and BIM and everything else. And what that did was, over the period of that time, there was very much a benchmark business, and that's quite important. You've got to be able to know what you're measuring and what you're measuring against. And they'd been doing that for many, many years. So they could see the improvements in the factory, for example. What happened was there was less errors. There was less lost information. There was a vast improvement in time to delivery in the factory environment. And that all helped improve efficiencies on the shop floor. And because the guys on the shop floor were paid based on efficiencies, they loved it too. So that was good. And what it also did was reduce remedials, which is things that go wrong on site and you have to go and fix them afterwards. And the biggest thing for that, I would say, was because the data wasn't maybe being specified correct when it was in PDF format, when it was built and it went wrong, you had to go and change it. There was a really good example of a gutter system that went wrong because it was plastic. It should have been steel. So with BIM and with structured data, that then helped make sure you had the right specification, the right values, you could check it. Other people could check it quickly, which is the other thing as well. So there was an internal verification process to make sure I hadn't made a mistake. Someone else could check it very quickly, because people make mistakes. And so that saved the company a lot of money, as you'll see in a couple of slides. I think maybe the next slide. So what happened in that year, they used to estimate per project and then have an actual cost per project at the end. And they've been doing that for many years, so it was quite a sensible solution. It worked very well. In that year, they actually made 2.5% more money per project, but not all of it was because of BIM and data. So we sat around the table and I argued quite a bit until we got to 1.25% and made the data behind it. But that was just because we was working more effectively and more efficiently and not making mistakes, to be honest. A lot of that was just because people were using data correctly. They had Excel spreadsheets locked away in their own little drawers. No one was communicating the same way. Once it was sorted, the value and the risk element was much better. I don't have time. Okay, so some other internal benefits. This is all obvious, really, but it's worth stating that what you can get from your data. You can obviously do scheduling and reporting, but you can also measure, and that's quite important. When you start using structured data, if you haven't got any benchmarks, start them, and then start measuring off them, and then you'll be able to see your improvements in your business, and then how you collaborate with people, and that's quite important. And the biggest thing for me was the single source of information. Getting away from all this PDFs and all these little pieces of data everywhere else that was out of date, having one structured data source that then did things like, this is not exhaustive, obviously, scheduling to produce shop floor material schedules, schedules for supply chain. Procurement was a massive one. The procurement system was very ad hoc. Emails, written documents by hand. Once the data was structured, it was all done correctly. Commercial in the UK where I used to work was what we call subcontract allocation. It fell under the commercial line. So, for example, if the windows were being done by an external company, that'd fall under the commercial aspect. And again, if you're then dealing with people who are supplying to you as a separate business, if you haven't got structured data and you haven't got the data right, you're just asking for trouble and your risk goes through the roof. And finally, finance. People love it when you make more money, so they were all happy. But the big thing, again, like I say in red, is the metrics. That was definitely that. Once the business started seeing and could measure the metrics and see what the value was, it was a continuous effect. People got on board very quickly. Okay, some other internal benefits. If you have things like PIMs and ERP systems, if you've got your data sorted right, you can then start doing some very clever things with the data to assist with information management and assist with resource planning and all these. There's various other systems that do this. But again, without the data, it's a bit of a struggle, shall we say. And the way they did it at my old company was they got rid of the data off PDFs completely because they went through a transition period where it was a bit of PDF and a bit of data. And I said, that's nonsense. Just get it done. So we just went cold turkey, got the data done, and started making more money, which was good. Okay, so I mentioned my Masters at the beginning. I've just finished it recently. It was actually on, and this is coincidental, nothing to do with CodeBuilder. It was actually on return on investment for BIM objects and BIM data for manufacturers. I wanted to try and assist manufacturers to understand what value they could get from doing BIM, either objects or data. So in terms of data, this is the thing that was found, the links that can occur when data starts being correct. And this is based on, obviously, all the thesis work I did, all the interviews, all the studies and everything. So basically, by decreasing internal errors, this is all common sense when you think about it. You reduce your material waste, which saves money. You reduce your labour waste, and they're obviously linked together as well because that's an inherent thing. Your time-saving processes happen naturally because you're effectively working more efficiently. But what was of interest was it helped increase the rate of sales for many businesses because they advertise themselves, saying, listen, look what we can do. We've got structured data. You can use our data. You can get this. And that, in turn, helped one business in particular, which are good friends of mine in Yorkshire, increase their market share. And they're very much a success story in Yorkshire for a small company doing BIM, doing data, and making a good go of it and getting rewards from it. So I wanted to show you that because it's not just one thing when you do data. It's many things, and they all help each other. So that's of importance. And I think the other thing is basically 2 more slides. How can I move the data to architects and other people? That's been discussed quite at length already. And that's what we're saying, where the product data sheets and product data templates and all these things fit in together. If you've got your data right and it's structured correctly, you can communicate effectively, and that's of importance. So you've seen that slide. I pinched this from Nick's slide. This is the slide that Nick showed earlier, but mine's a bit better quality. And it shows the slate. And again, so this is the example that I show people of saying this is why you can structure your data, do it right, and you can get a lot of benefit from it. Okay? And that's it. So it's a great opportunity for industry, structured data. There you go.